Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice new week of new opportunities, of which we got some boolah action going on in the early week segments, and we're essentially going to be following up on the higher term time frame ideas that we've been espousing and looking at from a statistical narrative for the past month now, slowly coming to fruition. And it does look like these next 2 weeks are going to be, more or less interesting. And then of course following up on the short term time frame price action analysis as well, of which we are looking for a little bit of a pullback plus another try higher, which I believe we're seeing that right now, I think. So with that in mind, I suspect that we can just jump right on into it, and let's just start it off right on over here with the higher term timeframes actually. So opening up with CME, we did identify a few major things that were confirmed as of Friday. The problem is CME obviously doesn't, trade over the weekend, so we have to wait until CME opens, which is now, and then they play out typically. And what do we see? We see bullish divergence, a little bit of phantom div over here, as we like to call it in the Discord, plus volatility increasing, actually creeping toward that 50 percentile marker, which is good for expansion. And then also we do see that the daily jewel has gotten the secondary signal on it. Of course, you kind of want to see this one confirmed as well upon closure, but if this does remain light blue, that would be a really good signal for another try to the upside. With that in mind, I would be looking for a move somewhere around the daily range highs, same thing kind of as before. And what we can do now is we can actually go reference a few other things that we've been looking at over the long term here, of which I would first be looking at daily stochastic momentum for CME. The pivot was hit, or not hit, but closed above, and we do see that the daily will remain with upside posture, meaning upside momentum, as long as Bitcoin is closing dailies above 20,900. Now this is on CME, not on spot price action. Spot price action is going to be a bit different. I think it's 20,100, yes, so even better in this case. But I do trust CME a lot more within this regard. And also what should be known is that the HVP, so volatility, basically a volatility indicator of stochastic momentum, is actually, looking for expansion off of, I wouldn't say this is extreme lows just yet, but pretty damn low. So this move could very well have some nice legs, kind of similar to Ethereum. In fact, Ethereum does seem to be leading the market right now. It's a more interesting chart, I do believe, especially on the higher term timeframes. With that in mind, I wanted to also follow up on this as well with the weekly stochastic momentum. We're actually going to officially see it cross it's going to have a chance to cross the upside. We have gotten the initial indication that it will, with any sort of a closure, not this week, but next week. So it needs to maintain above 19,550. So a big one right there. And then of course the bi-weekly also closed yesterday as well. And what do you know? It will have upside posturing with any sort of a closure above 20,150. So looking good right there. Of course, a long time between now and, the end of next week, but ultimately, I do like these levels simply for the historical narrative of them. If you just look at the bi-weekly right here, you'll quickly notice that any sort of a move into the lower end of these green bars that I'm currently hovering above has been marked off with some pretty nice bounces. In fact, not just some nice bounces within the history of Bitcoin, but also some, some significant, or not significant, like literally fucking macro lows. Now, of course, just because it gets into that region does not mean that it is necessarily a macro low. We have seen it do that before and also play out, it was essentially a failed rally. But even within the context of these failed rallies, of which we do see one back one over here in July 2018, these were still, let's see, close to 40% moves. So pretty damn big within the context of that. Anyways, what I also wanted to follow up on as I peruse here through the different timeframes is this. So I wanted to speak about this really quickly, and that would be the 5-day volatilities, which we use BBWP for, versus stochastic momentum chart. Now, this is a chart that I brought out, I believe, last week. It's pretty much a conglomeration, or, it accurately represents a lot of the different looks that we've been looking at on the higher term timeframes here. And what do we see? We see that there is an interplay between contraction and volatility and then momentum. So within the context of contraction and volatility, what we essentially look for, what I'm looking for on this, is I'm looking for extremes, which is, basically anything above 80 percentile on a time frame like this. And then I want to see contraction, which is denoted by the BBWP getting a negative slope, plus the moving average on it also getting a negative slope. So in this case, we have an example right here. And just to pull out like another example, we have one right on over here as well in June, and of course in January of 2021 actually as well. And the not reversals, but the reversions that we do see from these moves, have a pretty good hit rate in terms of getting the right direction with the stochastic momentum. So once that contraction phase is initiated, we have noticed that on average, the reversion play has been at just under 54%. There is a good amount of variance in this. I should note, for example, I mean, literally these two are like the extremes right here. Actually, one of them was 21% move, basically from high to low, and the next one was a 100% move from low to high in this case. And I would argue that, the majority of these kind of do hovering around the 40 to 50% region. So this would be, perhaps maybe a little bit on the lower end would be relevant to expect as well. But ultimately, the stochastic momentum oscillator has gotten the correct direction on those reversion plays for 10 out of 11 times. So there's a good amount of iterations right here, or just under 91% as you might calculate in your brain. Anyways, in this case, the reason why I pointed it out is because we do see that the 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator is pointed towards the north side and will be remaining with upside posturing as long as Bitcoin is closing 5 days above 19,600 or so. Now, of course, this one is not closing today. This one will be closing tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But if that level is maintained, that'd be a really, 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 really good signal that we will see this one carry on for a much more prolonged corrective move here. And I do use corrective deliberately. I do not think I would not call Bitcoin like a macro bottom just yet. Yes, there are some indications that perhaps it might be, but personally for myself, I would not feel comfortable stating that. Regardless of that, assuming that this does get confirmed or continues to be confirmed, meaning not invalidated at this point, then we could play around with numbers here and just kind of denote where would these potential targets be coming in around. Well, if we were to add about 14%, like 35% to the current lows, well, which we actually have seen that number come up a lot within the context of these corrective moves. Well, that would put Bitcoin basically at the daily range highs, which is 23,500. And if we were to play out a closer to 50% move, that would put Bitcoin 26,500 actually. Keep that number in the back of your mind's eye because it's about to come up yet again, or just spoil the surprise, it is going to come up yet again back on over here. Let me just find the actual chart. And yes, it'd be this one. And what do we see? We do see that Bitcoin does have a formation going on. I very rarely call it formations, just not a big fan of them. But if I did have to pick one or two that worked, it would be ascending and descending to triangles. And in this case, we do have the markers of an ascending triangle being built. It would be fully validated, thus having an implied move somewhere around that, hey, $26,500 region if Bitcoin, this is a big if, can close above the daily range highs, which would be a daily closure of about 22,000, if you want to be super exact, 22,600 basically. I'll round up right there actually. So in this case, still has a little bit of work to do. I probably would be looking for a pullback, maybe relatively soon, maybe after one more try higher towards the official daily range highs in this case. But hey, any sort of a closure above there. And then yes, we do have this measure move over here, which is, very much in tune with that percentage move, historically speaking, that we just spoke about. And then also that would be the 1.618 Fibonacci extension that you can see coming out of this, what would be an accumulation base if confirmed, of course. So with all of that said, as we're 8 minutes into this, I want to actually go back and work my way backwards in here into the short-term timeframes. So what do we have on the short-term timeframes? Well, I just wanted to go over some ranges right now. We've been slowly moving up the point of, I guess, of lack of control. Is someone like knocking on the door? I don't know. They're really mad about this analysis. They don't fucking like it. Bear's knocking on the door right now. But you never know what you're gonna. Maybe probably more likely a fucking rabbit if you've been watching my Instagram. Anyways, in this case, I would once again move up the point of failure for BULAs here, not from 20,100, which is what we had 2 to 3 days ago, not to 20,600, which is what we had yesterday, but now it's say just below 21,000 bucks. So that is to say, as long as Bitcoin's above there, it's just another higher low, and I do look for Bitcoin to ultimately try higher. But with Bitcoin, starting to approach the range highs, is there going to be a short-term pullback? Probably yes. We'll see. But ultimately, the eyes are on the higher-term timeframes in this case, or at least my eyes are on the higher-term timeframes. So within that regard, I'd be using this high here from the 8th of July, which is 22,550, as a bit of a point of interest alongside the white 200 simple on this time frame, which is coming down from 22,900, and that will be coming down actually rather rapidly with each and every 4-hour closure to the tune of about $50 bucks, it looks like. On top of that, short-term time frame stochastic momentum is actually looking to maybe cross up here again with any sort of a closure above 22,000 bucks. Obviously, Bitcoin's above there right now. 57 minutes left to go, which is pretty damn good. And the hourly is also likely up. Yes, indeed it is, as long as Bitcoin's above 21,900 or so. And the 6 hour is also going to be up as long as Bitcoin's above 22,100. So what does this, all kind of look like? Well, what it all kind of looks like is that Bitcoin probably grinds this area out, maybe with one or two more tests around that region. But I don't necessarily know if it's ready to break today. I do think that it's going to break, maybe sometime around like Tuesday, Wednesday. Of course, timing these things, like I've never been that very good at, which is, I don't think that you need to be good at it. That's why we go with price levels, because they're like very well defined. Don't need to worry about bullshit like this, which is a lot more arbitrary. But ultimately, these are the ranges as I kind of see them. I do like the higher low, obviously, on Bitcoin, and I do like these kind of 3 spike lows that we see here on CME. This is something that my mentor absolutely loved for nice little reversals. Other than that, we're 10 minutes into this video. Should I show you the ultimate hopium yet again? Holy shit, it's the pi cycle low indicator, motherfucker! And maybe it's even called another one. Just kidding, man. Well, I mean, it might have. To be fair, it has been pretty good within the history of Bitcoin. Yes, it's called the past 2 macro cycle lows. Is that like a trend? Not really. 3 times makes a trend, and honestly, I'd really want to see like 10 plus iterations. To be fair, it's not like exactly precise, but it is a good indication that we're more likely to see some upside here than not. Kind of as we've been stating on this channel, it's just more likely from a statistical standpoint. I still personally would refrain from calling it like a macro low just yet. I want to see a few more things, which I do think could happen maybe as soon as September or October. What is the month? August, end of August, early September, something like that. But hey, for right now, this is a good start, at least for a little bit of a bear market rally, and we'll see where things kind of end up. Does Bitcoin get all the way up to 22,000 or 26,500 bucks or not? I do think that's kind of a little bit more of a best case scenario around the end of month. But ultimately, it does look like Bitcoin Bula is going to make this one a little bit more interesting for the short term here. So I hope that was in some way helpful. I'll be signing off now. I should probably quickly shill Bybit. They have a nice promotion going on where you pay 0% in maker fees if you use the link in the description below. That means that if you get filled on limit order, not at market, then you basically don't pay any fees, so more money in your pocket. Other than that, I also wanted to point out this. So yes, I partnered up with, or affiliated with, whatever the fuck that even means, Funded Futures Network, of which one of the guys who is actually running it, he is a Cave member, not a former Cave member. And I should let you know that the pre-sale is ending today, Monday, July 18th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So after that, the pre-sale prices will go up, and then they'll launch their service relatively soon, which is actually rather exciting, especially for people who want funding for their account. Like if you actually have the skill to trade and you can prove that to them, they will fund you up to 250,000 bucks. So there you go. You'd have to play by the rules, obviously, but better, I mean, it's a fun way to get started, honestly. All right, cool. I'll be signing off now. Much love, take care, and see you hopefully soon.